Week 14, otherwise known as the final week of the regular season. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Saddle up, let's ride. Week 14, League of Legends. My name, of course, is Drew Garino. There is a separate playoff scenario video that you can also check out, so we're not going to get into any of the scenarios. We're going to do the straight picks, and we're going to be on with the show. Quick update on last week. Yes, I know, nobody likes to hear it. 5-0. Choke on it. Bringing the overall record on the season to 45-16. Let's not waste any further time. Let's get right into the action here. We're going to start with the two matchups this week that do not have any playoff scenario implications. First, looking at Bill coming in with a record of 5-8, facing off against Steve, who comes in with a record of 4-9, hoping to avoid the pink shirt this year. Looking at Bill's team, a guy that I love this week is AJ Green. He faces off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 28 points against the Steelers last time out. Andy Dalton's number one target. Pivotal game in the AFC North. Yada, yada, yada. AJ Green, big game on Sunday. Looking at the downside, Charcandrick West faces off against the San Diego Chargers. It is a home contest. The reason why I'm putting him in the down category is there is a gentleman by the name of Spencer Ware also in the backfield for Kansas City. They will collide. They will take away from each other. That's why I don't believe Charcandrick West is in for a big game on Sunday. Looking at Steve's team, a very large bright spot on Steve's team the last couple of weeks has been the play of Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson faced off against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. He had a monster game last week. The Colts can't cover really anybody. They can't stop a nosebleed right now on defense. Allen Robinson should see the ball early and often in that contest. Yes, I know Allen Hurns is back in the lineup. Doesn't matter. Allen Robinson is the number one guy in the Jacksonville wide receiver core. When you look at the downside, I'm going to stay with the wide receiver position. I'm going to put Marvin Jones, Cincinnati Bengals, in the down category, face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. As much as I like AJ Green in that matchup, I don't think Marvin Jones is going to give you anything substantial out of that position to have a relevant fantasy football day on Sunday. When you look at this matchup, I don't see Bill losing. I like what he's done the last couple of weeks. James White could have a good game for him as well. So I'm going to take Bill to win this one, move to 6-8 on the season. Steve is unfortunately going to fall to 4-10 and is going to be in danger of acquiring the pink shirt again this season. Another matchup that does not have any playoff implications at this point because these two gentlemen have already clinched a playoff spot. That is, of course, 10-3 Ryan against 9-4 Cam going into Week 14. When you look at Ryan's team, guy that's been just very consistent all the way through the season has been the play of Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall faced off against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. I like for him to find the end zone. The Titans cannot cover anyone in the secondary. They were in a shootout last week. They just gave up 5 touchdowns to Blake Bortles. You got to think Brandon Marshall's going to have a very large game on Sunday for the New York Jets. Looking at the downside, I'm going to put Kirk Cousins in the down category this week. He faced off against the Chicago Bears. I know Cousins has been okay this year, somewhat relevant in fantasy football. I just don't like the matchup this week. The Redskins are too inconsistent for my liking. They just lost to friggin' Dallas, for God's sake. So I don't love Kirk Cousins. This could be a game where Phillip Rivers ends up starting for Ryan instead, so we'll see what he does there. But as of now, Kirk Cousins is in the lineup, and I'm going to put him in the down category for Ryan's team. Going to Cam's team, I'm going to stay with the Jets trend here. I think the Jets are going to have a big week, and I also think that Chris Ivory is going to have a big week against the Titans. Now, you may be thinking Bilal Powell has been getting a lot of the touches recently. However, that's true, but those have been games that the Jets have been down in third, fourth quarters trying to make comebacks. I don't think that's going to be the case this week. I think the Jets are going to actually go out to a lead, and they're going to try to kill the clock with Chris Ivory because he's their most dependable running back, and I think he's going to have a good game. He's going to find the end zone against the Titans this week. Little bit of a shocker here for the down category for Cam. I know he's projected very high. He's projected at 21 points this week. However, I don't see him getting to that point total in this particular contest. That is Carson Palmer, quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, as he faces off against the Minnesota Vikings this week. A couple of red flags with that. It is against Minnesota, of course. Their secondary is pretty strong. And the second down thing, it's tonight. the Thursday night game. Traditionally, I don't like the quarterbacks in the Thursday night game. I don't think he's going to have a huge game, and I think the 21 points that he's projected at is a little bit high. I could see him coming in under that, maybe 16, 15 points, something like that for Carson Palmer tonight. When you look at this matchup, I think this is going to be a very close one. It was a really unfortunate situation for Cam. He lost Mark Ingram for the season. I did see that he picked up both the running backs for the Saints, so either way, he should have the replacement there. He doesn't have them starting right now. He's got Eddie Lacy on the bench. And I think ultimately that Cam's got a little bit of a flux situation going on. So I'm going to stick with the dependable Ryan. He's going to win this one. He's going to move to 10-4, he's going to move to 11-3, solidify the number one spot in the League of Legends standings moving forward into the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, the next three matchups are pivotal in terms of where teams are going to finish in the playoff structure. First, looking at myself, coming in with a record of 7-6 on the season. I have lost the last 4 contests at a very inopportune time. When you look at Adam's team, he's hoping to stay away from the pink shirt for the second consecutive season. Right now, he has the same record as Steve, but he does have a point advantage. He comes in with a record of 4-9. Looking at Drew's team, a guy that really showed some signs of life last week because, they gave him the friggin' ball for a change. That's Lamar Miller for the Dolphins. He faces off against the New York Giants in the Monday night contest. Last week was the first time that Lamar Miller hit 20 attempts on the ground. Finally, he's actually pretty decent if you give him the ball. It took 2 offensive coordinators for the Dolphins to figure that out. He faced off, of course, against the Giants. That's a favorable matchup. They are not great against running backs, so I think Lamar Miller is in for a large game on Monday night. Looking at the down category, a guy that's been up, down, but it's a position of flux right now for Drew. That is Jacob Tamme, faces off against the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Certainly we know where Carolina stands, that they're very strong. They do a pretty good job against tight ends. It is a road game for the Falcons, so that is going to be a trouble game for the Falcons in general. Matt Ryan has been very inconsistent of late, so that does not bode well for Jacob Tamme's performance chances on Sunday. Looking at Adams' team, obviously a lot of injuries that Adams had to deal with throughout the season, but a lone bright spot for the last couple of weeks for him has been the play of Golden Tate. Golden Tate faces off against the St. Louis Rams on Sunday. He's been a PPR machine. He had 7 catches last week. He had a big game on Thanksgiving against the Eagles. So for PPR purposes, I love Golden Tate. He may not get the volume or the yardage number that you're looking for, but the number of catches is going to make him a relevant fantasy player in this week's contest. Sticking at the receiver position, a guy I'm going to put in the down category is Travis Benjamin. He faces off against the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, that's a good matchup for the Browns, but their quarterback play has been in such flux the last couple of weeks. He really hasn't developed a good rapport with some of the newer quarterbacks. This week, they're going back to Johnny Manziel. In the past, they haven't worked great together. Even though it is a favorable matchup, also Benjamin is dealing with a bit of an injury situation right now, so that does not bode well for his chances on Sunday against the 49ers. When you look at this matchup, Drew has been really struggling the last few weeks. Again, lost 4 in a row. All he's had to do really is win one of those 4 games, and he really wouldn't be in the position that he's in right now. But nonetheless, he faces off against Adam. That's a very opportunistic matchup for him. I like for his chances to win this one. He's going to move to 8-6 and solidify a playoff spot in the League of Legends standings. Another game that has huge playoff implications has really been with 2 unsung guys that have been struggling at the beginning of the year but have really picked it up of late. Of course, I'm speaking of 6-7 Sean, who beat me last week. And not only did he win that game, but had a very high point total with 186 points. Facing off against Dave, who's really made a big surge the last couple of weeks. He's currently 3rd in the League of Legends in points scored. He, of course, comes in with a record of also 6-7. Looking at Sean's team, the old, reliable, a guy that you think is going to go away. You think he's not going to do well because there's other options now in the backfield. That, of course, is Matt Forte. He faces off against the Washington Redskins. Even with Langford, even with Carey, the Bears continue to find a way to get Matt Forte the football, catching the ball, running the ball, and of course finding the end zone. And I like for him to do all 3 of those things on Sunday against the Redskins. Looking also at Sean's team, a guy that really He's had a strong rookie campaign. He's been very effective throughout the year. It was a good draft pick for Sean this particular year. Unfortunately, he has a very difficult matchup this week. That, of course, is Amari Cooper. He faces off against the Denver Broncos on the road. A very important game for the Raiders if they want to stay alive in the playoff conversation. However, Denver's defense has been playing very well of late. Their secondary has been very strong. And Amari Cooper, last time out against the Denver Broncos, only had 8 fantasy points. So that does not bode well for his chances to do well on Sunday. Looking at Dave's team, I'm going to stay at the receiver position, a guy that's really turned it on the last couple of weeks and has really helped out his offense and his quarterback, of course, is Sammy Watkins. He faces off against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road on Sunday. He had a very good game against Kansas City 2 weeks ago. He had a very good game last week at home as well for the Buffalo Bills. It's been a huge help for Tyrod Taylor. Sammy Watkins has been very active. And really since that Patriots game, he's been a real bright spot for Dave's team and has come up with some viable fantasy productivity numbers the last couple of weeks. So I like for that to continue against a secondary that has been known to give up some yardage, some touchdowns, things of that nature. Looking at the downside for Dave's team, I'm going to put Darren McFadden in the down category. He does have a favorable matchup. It is against the Green Bay Packers. Really a must-win situation for Green Bay this week. The reason why I'm going to put him in the down category is the last 2 weeks I've really started to see the wear and tear of the season starting to build up on Darren McFadden. He salvaged a very poor game last week with a touchdown. He did have 2 fumbles in that contest, so he's essentially a fumble away from really not being involved in the game at all for the Dallas Cowboys. So just don't have a lot of confidence in Darren McFadden's ability to have a big game on Sunday. But when you look at this matchup, this is a very important matchup. Of course, each of these gentlemen is not only going to have to win, but also is going to have to get some help from other League of Legends members, aka myself, to lose. I'm going to go with Dave this week because I think Dave has more guys on his roster. Odell Beckham, D'Angelo Williams, Greg Olsen, Cam Newton. These are guys that have the ability to have huge games on Sunday. As much as I like Sean's roster and really what Sean's been doing of late, I just don't see the same big game potential for them. I think Cooper could underperform for him. You never know. Dalton could rear his ugly redhead again and not have a good game for the Cincinnati Bengals against the Steelers on Sunday. So I just don't see the big play potential there for Sean's roster this week. And oh yeah, Buck Allen's got the Seattle defense with no quarterback. So that's not going to bode well. So I'm going to take Dave to win this one to move to 7-7. It's going to eliminate Sean from contention. Of course, Dave will only be able to make the playoffs pending the results of my contest against Adam. Finally, that brings us to the matchup of the week. Of course, facing off 7-6 Dennis, who had a great opportunity to really solidify a playoff spot with a victory last week. He was not able to get that victory against Bill. He faces off against Bud, who continues to hang around, even with all the injuries, even with all the low point totals. Bud comes into this matchup with a record of 7-6 and has the opportunity to make the playoffs with a victory in this contest. When you look at Dennis's team, Dennis really loaded up on the Jaguars. It's been a running joke this year, but ultimately the joke's been on us because the Jaguars have actually been very good and produced a lot of fantasy contributions throughout the season. I think this is a big game for Blake Bortles. He faced off against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. Bortles threw 5 touchdown passes last week against the Tennessee Titans. Certainly the Colts are better than the Titans, but I like for Bortles to have another big game on Sunday. He's going to find his weapons. The Jaguars really are most effective when they throw the ball, and I like for that to continue on Sunday. Looking at the down category, I'm going to put Jordan Matthews in the down category. He faces off against the Buffalo Bills. Although he had a touchdown catch last week, and I believe he had one 2 weeks ago, really not much consistency there from Jordan Matthews that really leads me to believe that he's going to be a viable contributor. Right now, Dennis has him in the flex position, so he could easily be subbed out. But ultimately, I think that might be the best option for Dennis. I just don't see him having a huge game on Sunday to really give Dennis that point total that maybe he's looking for out of his number 1 wide receiver. Looking at Bud's roster, a guy that I put in the up category really frequently the last couple of weeks is Martavius Bryant, and really for good reason. He's been very good for the Steelers. He's really been that 1B option after Antonio Brown. Certainly benefits to have Ben Roethlisberger back in the lineup. As we mentioned off the top, this is a pivotal game for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC North, facing off against the Cincinnati Bengals. And Brian's going to have to be involved in the offense for them to have success. I think he will, and I think he's going to have a good game on Sunday for the Steelers. Staying at the receiver position, a guy that's just been really dreadful the last couple of weeks after a really promising start. He came out of nowhere. He was getting all these touchdown catches. It was so effective. But recently, just like the Green Bay offense, he has just been invisible. He had a 0-point total, I believe, last week. So that, of course, is James Jones. James Jones faces off against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. For all the reasons we just talked about, I just have zero confidence in James Jones' ability to have a good fantasy day on Sunday. There's got to be somebody else in Bud's roster or on free agency that can come in and take the productivity away from James Jones, because I just don't have any confidence in his ability on Sunday. Of course, we mentioned off the top, the winner of this matchup has the ability to make it to the playoffs. That being said, I'm going to put my money on Dennis to win this one. He's got more viable contributions coming his way on Sunday and Monday. So I'm going to take Dennis to win this one. He's going to move to 8-6 on the season, clinch a playoff spot, and of course eliminate Bud with a record of 7-7. So there you have it. That's what we're looking at for Week 14 in the matchups here. A lot of pivotal matchups for both sides of the spectrum. Playoff positioning, pink shirt positioning. Of course, best of luck to everybody out there, and as always, enjoy the action!